Good morning, everybody. Jesse Montano, Guerilla Sports here at the news desk, at the sports desk in the Guerilla Sports studios. And this is an exciting day for us here at Guerilla Sports. I teased it at the end of our show last week on Friday, if you were watching Guerilla Hockey with JJ and Jesse. I said that this week was going to bring a lot of changes for Guerilla Sports. And this will be the first week that we are rolling out a brand new content schedule for you guys. That is going to be 3 shows a day, consistent. Every show is going to have new times, a new look. There's just going to be a lot more structure and a lot of changes, like I said, coming this week. We've gone a little bit quiet since the end of the Colorado Avalanche and Denver Nuggets seasons, and a lot of it has been in preparation for what we are rolling out this week. You know, we're a small team here at Guerilla. We're still growing, and everyone's working their tails off to make sure that we can bring you guys the best, highest quality product every single day. So look, like I said, over the next few weeks, this show right here, this is Guerilla Sports Daily. I'm your host today, but we will have a rotating cast of hosts here at Guerilla Sports that'll be taking you through every single morning the world of sports. I was given a piece of advice in this industry a couple years ago about the best way to not survive in this job, but the way to look at this job and the way to approach doing what we're so very fortunate to do. And it was, hey, every day when I wake up and I show up to work, my job is to find what's the story of the day. What is today's storyline that makes it unique? And that's a little bit the inspiration behind this show right here, is that we have a really talented cast of hosts, some really smart sports people, some really talented media people, and we all see the world of sports through different lenses and different scopes and different perspectives, and we watch different things sometimes. So we thought it would be fun if we had a show where we get to bring you guys our stories every day, the stuff that caught our attention, whether it be, from last night, over the weekend. Obviously, I'm getting to start things off here on a Monday, so I'm getting the full weekend to pull from. But there's a lot that happens in the world of sports, not just within, the small sports that we cover, the tiny pockets, regionally that we're in or whatever. There's a lot that happens out here, and we see all of it. We watch most of it, and we have opinions on it. So that's what we're going to do here with this show. But like I said, guys, I'll be back on another show talking Avs here this afternoon. Then we'll have our Broncos, more of our beat kind of day-to-day show rolling out this afternoon. And every day from here on out, it's going to be more content coming at you guys. It'll do nothing but get bigger. We're going to do nothing but add to that and continue to grow the network and the talent pool and the shows and our overall coverage. And we have big plans to bring you guys a lot of coverage outside of the shows and the podcasts every single day. But that is what today and this week is about for us here at Guerilla. We had our big meeting on Friday after I teased everything with the show and got, everyone's on board. And so here we go. We're rolling it out. We're doing it this week. So a lot more Guerilla Sports content coming your guys' way every single day. And most of it's going to be live, like this is right now, as I go in to retweet a link and you're watching that live. I'm even getting a notification to jump into this live on X. So thanks for the promotion. Hey, let's get into it. A lot happened this weekend in the world of sports. We had the potential to have 2 series and seasons come to an end as the NBA and NHL had the potential to wrap up. The Boston Celtics led over the Dallas Mavericks 3-0 heading into Game 4. The Florida Panthers in the NHL had the same lead over the Edmonton Oilers heading into that Game 4 in Edmonton. Let's start on the NBA side. Well, I guess before I get into specifics on either, isn't it funny how these 2 series have played out so extremely similar? Look, on the NHL side, I'm not going to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I had the expectation that I understood the Florida Panthers were a really, really good team. This is a team that's been knocking on the door for a few years. So I expected them to maybe have a slight edge in that series, but the way that those first 3 games played out in the Stanley Cup final, the Florida Panthers looked like they just had the Edmonton Oilers outmatched. And I'm going to circle back to that matchup here in a second. But that, the games 1 through 3, Florida looked like I didn't know if Edmonton could even touch them. Then on the other side, there were a lot of predictions, including multiple people here at Guerilla Sports that thought the Dallas Mavericks, hey, look, this could be a good series. This could be a fun back and forth, but at the end of the day, the Dallas Mavericks are probably going to pull ahead. I believe our very own Liv Moods even had Mavs in 5, and she is not the only person that I saw out there in the Twitter sphere with that kind of prediction. And it was easy to see why. We here in Denver got an up-close look at the Minnesota Timberwolves and the talent, the young talent that is coming up through that team, and really just the way that they were kind of able to assert themselves against the defending champ, and they are still the defending champ, Denver Nuggets. In that round 2, they looked like they were maybe a little bit of an overwhelming team. A lot of pundits were saying, hey, the winner of this Minnesota-Denver series is probably going to be the team that goes on to win it. Well, Minnesota comes out of that series, and it was just the Luka show in the Western Conference Final. Pretty close to what I would say is dominance from the Dallas Mavericks. So now you can't say that without mentioning the fact that the Boston Celtics were kind of doing the same thing on the Eastern Conference side. But look, there was a lot of reason to believe that at bare minimum this was going to be a highly competitive, really back and forth NBA final. And really what I thought was part of the difference, and we're going to get into the minutia of Game 5s here a little bit, but part of the difference was you were waiting this whole series. Where's Kyrie? Obviously, there's the well-documented, kind of backstory with Kyrie and the Boston Celtics. You thought there was going to be a little bit of the revenge tour. Luka continuing to put people on notice, and just saying, hey, look, you maybe like those guys better than a Tatum or what the Boston Celtics had at the top of the lineup. Just underwhelming from Kyrie and Luka in particular. Games 1 through 3, not, I guess you could say more than kind of underwhelming. I mean, they had a nice push there late in the fourth quarter of Game 3, but just not what you were expecting, and not what, if you're planning on winning in the NBA Finals, you can, acceptably get out of your top guys. Well, that script kind of flipped there in Game 5. Luka, 29 points, goes 12 for 26. Kyrie just 10 for 18 for 21 points. While it wasn't maybe, show-stopping and they just completely took over and dominated the game and, said, I'll score all the points myself. They got the top players, and here's another parallel between Game 5 in the NBA and Game 5 in the NHL. Top guys showed up. You got contributions. Like I said, decent nights from Kyrie and Luka. Decent nights. On the NHL side, Leon Draisaitl gets his first point of the Stanley Cup Final. Connor McDavid gets his first goal of the Stanley Cup Final. But the reason that those scores were so lopsided was you got great contributions, for the Mavericks from your bench, for the Oilers from your depth all over the lineup. The Oilers were up 2-0, and Draisaitl and McDavid didn't have a point in the game. You get 15 points from Tim Hardaway, if you're the Dallas Mavericks coming off the bench. Lots of contributions from your bench for the Dallas Mavericks. So, it was a formula that it's going to be hard to repeat that for either of those teams, for one more game, let alone for 3 more games. But without, biting off, more than you can chew at once, it's an interesting parallel to follow in a Game 5. Because your top guys show up, they're at their most desperate. You get those depth contributions that, in fairness to both teams, they've been getting, but I heard Ray Ferraro mention it on the Stanley Cup Final broadcast that they showed the Edmonton Oilers goal scorers through 3 games. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, neither of them were on the list. And Ray Ferraro, ESPN's in between the glass analyst, made the point. He said, if you would have told me before this series started that heading into Game 4, Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid wouldn't have a goal, I'd tell you the Edmonton Oilers are in trouble. Well, here we are, they're at the time, they're down 3-0 in the series. Those two players don't have a goal and they're in trouble. So, you can look at both series and say, yeah, your top guys aren't going. You're probably not going to be in a good spot. So game 5 rolls around. Both teams are down 3-0. Both teams are at home. Both the Edmonton Oilers, Dallas Mavericks are risking having their seasons ended and a championship trophy being raised in their buildings. And I told someone before those games started, I said, look, if you can't get up for a game 4, where you're trying to avoid being swept in the finals, if you can't get up for that one and have your absolute best performance put forward, I don't know if you belong in pro sports. It's that level of, you have to have that level of competitiveness, that level of desire to not have the season end that way. We talked about that here with the Colorado Avalanche coming off of the game 5 in round 2 where, you lose Val Nichushkin just hours before the game. Then Devon Taves is sick. He's trying to play. He's trying to get into the lineup. Isn't quite healthy enough to do it. And it ends up being one of your worst games probably in the last 3-4 months. And a lot of our conversation was, well, if you're the Avs, can you really let it end that way? Can you go out knowing that was, can you let it end on that kind of a thud? And I was having that same thought, in regards to the Dallas Mavericks and Edmonton Oilers, where are you going to go on these runs and get to the finals, and then are you going to let this run kind of just fall flat on its face? 40% of NHL teams that fall behind 3-0 go on to win a game 4 and force a game 5. In the NBA, that number is closer to 34%. So, look, it's hard to get up 3-0 in a series. It's even harder to battle back from 3-0, being down 3-0 in a series. And look, what those numbers tell me, I was honestly, when I went to look into that, what percentage of teams win a game 5 when they're, that's the second time I've done that. Win a game 4 when their backs are against the wall trying to force a game 5. I honestly thought the number was going to be pretty high. Maybe even in like the 70% range. It's hard to pull off a sweep. It's hard to win 4 games in a row. What these numbers tell me is that when you get that far out ahead, it's an overwhelming task. And teams maybe bite off. They get too busy looking at the big picture. Oh my gosh, how are we going to win 4? And it ends up getting away from them. The Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Mavericks did something that fewer than half the teams do when they fall behind 3-0. That's force a game 5. Now, they're up against it a little bit. Boston Celtics 17-3 in the regular season following a loss. And the Florida Panthers on the NHL side have only lost consecutive games 5 times this season. So it's going to be difficult for either of these teams to battle back. Now, on the flip side of that, the Edmonton Oilers lost 3 games in a row in the regular season and then went on to rattle off 16 straight wins. Dallas Mavericks, well, we just saw them in the Western Conference Final be able to string together at least 3 consecutive wins. I'm not saying it's impossible. You're in the finals on both sides. These are good teams. These are competitive teams. These are teams that are here for a reason because they've been able to do stuff like this, because they've been able to win in streaks and put bad losses behind them. And this is why it's fun, right? This is why we tune in. But the NBA and the NHL have been following pretty similar storylines here in these finals. After polar opposite conference finals, it has been interesting to see the way that these two leagues have played out near identically here in the finals, with one team really kind of taking over. And look, like talking to folks around before each of those game 4s, I think there was a lot of expectations that we were potentially staring down 2 sweeps. That, look, they just look too dominant. I even told someone, cause after I made the comment in the conversation that I was having about, like, look, if you can't get up for this, I don't know if you belong in pro sports. I also just said, at least on the NHL side, maybe the Florida Panthers are just too good. maybe the Edmonton Oilers are going to get up for this game, but the Florida Panthers are just too good. And I started hearing that conversation on the NBA side as well from our Nuggets folks here, Liv Moods, BK, Shelby Harris. And, they were just starting to say, like, man, we really believed in this Mavs team. We really thought that this was a team that could not only put up a good fight against the Celtics, but win. And not only win, but win easily. Win in 5 games. But then it started to shift of like, well, hey, maybe this Celtics team is just built better than maybe we thought. And maybe there were, a couple other teams that could have put up a good fight, but this Celtics team is just too deep. Those narratives started to shift in both leagues to, hey, maybe they're just too dominant. We're heading towards a couple of sweeps. That's not the case. The Celtics have another chance to close it out tonight. Like I said, 17-3 following a loss in the regular season. Are they able to bounce back and win their 18th NBA championship? Florida Panthers will have to wait till tomorrow. They will have a chance back on home ice as well to win their organization's first Stanley Cup in franchise history. It's going to be interesting because both games were blowouts. We're going to see how both teams respond to this. Are the Mavs and Oilers going to say, oh, okay, we got it figured out now. We're good. We won a game. We're now we can take over. And how are the teams that got blown out going to respond? Are you able to just let that slide off your back and say, all right, got blown out, kind of write it off? That's the good thing about that. This is the last thing I'm going to say on the 2 game 4s on both sides. And this has been fun because I've been able to talk to them about these 2 sports and these 2 games as if they're one thing, because they played out so similarly. But because of the way that both the Panthers and the Celtics lost game 4, are you able to just drag and drop that straight in the trash? We don't even need to look at it. We don't even need to go over that. We know it went horribly. There were breakdowns everywhere. It wasn't our style of play. Again, look, I'm not even being specific. You don't know which one I'm talking about, but it applies to both games in both sports, 2 completely different sports. We got blown out. Wasn't our type of game. We played the game was played too loosey-goosey. Let's tighten things back up. Let's get back to our style of play. And you can just write that off, turn the page, got to get back on it. Let's see what these 2 teams do. Game 5, Celtics, Mavs is tonight. Game 5, Panthers, Oilers tomorrow night. Both seasons could be done, and that would leave us with golf and baseball, of course. But we're here in Colorado. There's not a lot of airtime given to the Colorado Rockies right now. Depending on who you're talking to, that's either a good thing or, hey, maybe we should be talking about these guys more. But let's talk about it. U.S. Open this weekend. Rory McIlroy. Look, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a massive golf fan. I watch it. I get into it if it's on. I like watching it. I was just telling the story last week on one of our shows that I went and played a proper round of golf for the first time in my life this year. I've been to the course, driven the golf course, I've gone to the driving range a billion times in my life. But for the first time this year, I went out with co-host here, JJ Jerez, and just went and played a round. It was fun. I'm trying to get more into it. Rory McIlroy. I remember when Rory McIlroy first broke onto the scene in professional golf as a young kid. I believe he was 18, 19 at the time. And he was kind of the rage. Hey, this is the next guy, right? He's going to, for the next 20 years, look out, Rory McIlroy. And of course, Rory McIlroy has been a staple, a mainstay on the golf stage ever since then. But I bring him up. We talk a lot in sports about this franchise, long-suffering franchise, long-suffering fan base. It's been however many years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, since they've made it to the playoffs, since they've won a championship, since they've made it to the finals, whatever it is. And it's always tough because you think about, players that have been there for a long time, people that have worked in the organization for a long time, fans, things like that, right? you win a championship, and it's always great. And my wife and I are watching Welcome to Wrexham on FX and Hulu. And it's a fantastic show. And, a large part of that first season was this is a team that is trying to dig out of a 15-year hole with no real success and nothing but heartbreak. And, whether it be football teams, soccer teams, hockey teams, when you win, let's use the Colorado Avalanche 2 years ago as the example. It had been over 21 years since they had last won a Stanley Cup championship. And you talk about the fan base and the organization, and you're hanging another banner, and it's been a long time. With that, though, they're team sports. So you had players that year, Arturi Lehkonen, Josh Manson, Andrew Cogliano, who they were not long-suffering members of the Colorado Avalanche. They joined the Colorado Avalanche, and about 3 months later, they were Stanley Cup champions. They've known nothing but unbelievable success with the Colorado Avalanche. What I find interesting about golf, and Rory McIlroy in particular, it's been over 10 years since his last Majors championship. 37 appearances over those 10 years, and 4 times he's finished in second place this past weekend, perhaps being the most heartbreaking with fewer than 5 holes to go. With 5 holes to go, he had a 2-stroke lead, and coming down the entire stretch there within those 5 holes, it was nothing but, if you looked around online, like, he did it. He found a way to show up, found a way to get it done. Good for him. Until finally, within the last 2 holes, missteps on a couple of putts inside of 3 feet and loses the Majors on the last hole. Loses another Majors championship on the last hole. Many were saying arguably the most heartbreaking of his last 37 appearances over the last 10 years, where he doesn't find a win. And you're just continuing to knock on the door and heartbreak. Now, why was I drawing this parallel to team sports and mentioning stuff like Wrexham and the 2022 Colorado Avalanche? Because this is one guy. This is one individual just repeatedly running into this wall that he just can't seem to get past. And the shot of him leaving, I'm not sure where it was situated. It looked like some type of, player's suite, before collecting himself and walking out of the clubhouse. I mean, it's gut-wrenching for anybody that's a sports fan that's gone a long time watching their team without, winning a championship. That's been part of a team that's gone a long time without winning a championship. I just can't imagine what a golfer as talented as Rory McIlroy is, someone who's been around as long as he has, who has won a championship. He's got Majors titles. He knows what it feels like, and to just be continually coming up short, and again for the 4th time in those last 10 years, coming in as the runner-up, and to do it in a way like this, 2 holes to go, 2 putts under 3 feet. It's almost snake bitten is the only word I can think of to describe something like that. And I don't know, how often you use that kind of term in golf. But, I know when I think about hockey, basketball, football, you guys are snake bitten. And I just can't imagine that you can describe this as anything else, given the circumstances, given the moment, what he was trying to do, what streak Rory McIlroy is trying to break. Snake bitten. How else do you describe a golfer this talented sitting where he was sitting on the weekend, led after day 1, led after day 2? You're snake bit. To not be able to close out something like that, absolutely heartbreaking. Rory McIlroy did leave without doing any media, went to his car, got in, and drove off immediately. There are some people saying that maybe he shouldn't have been driving given how emotional he was, but I digress. I want to know what your guys' thoughts are. As someone who works in media, we have that discussion sometimes that, hey, look, you have, as an athlete, you have moments, pro athlete, you have moments that are great. You have moments that, you really struggle, that you'd rather not deal with, or you make mistakes, you do things that are great. And it's expected that, you get up and talk about that stuff. And, look, there are times I get it. I know Rory McIlroy will come back around and give his media availability at some point. And I think that's fine as long as he does it at some point. I get it. It's the emotions of the moment. We maybe expect athletes to not have that, not deal with that because they are professionals. Hey, you're a pro. Get up there and answer questions. It's not always that easy. I've been into locker rooms after heartbreaking losses, in gut-wrenching moments. I've walked into locker rooms now 2 years in a row after you've been eliminated from the playoffs. We went up and talked to Eric Johnson last year knowing that he was probably on his way out of town. He had likely played his final game with the Colorado Avalanche. And you got to go in there. And so I get it. I understand it's tough and there's times where you need a moment to collect yourself and make sure that you're going to say the right thing. I think that's maybe what Rory was doing. I'll be anxious to see what he eventually says. I know there are people that didn't like the fact that he left, given the way that everything ended, without doing media, but I'll be curious to hear what he has to say on the way it ended. But I imagine that that's something that you probably need a couple days to collect your thoughts to make sure that you're saying the right thing about an ending like that and about a weekend that went the way that one did for Rory. Winding things down here, guys, just a few minutes left in this one. Did want to just make everyone aware. My guy Jay, who's running the board for us right now, was giving JJ and I a hard time because we were making the comment about, once the NBA and NHL finals end, we're down to just baseball. Yes, we got the Euro Cup going right now for soccer or football. And we were like, but other than that, it's just soccer. And he came in and he goes, you idiots. The Olympics start next month. And we were like, oh, yeah, that's right. It's 24/7 sports for 14 days, starting just next month. But right now, starting 2 days ago, the U.S. Olympic trials are going on. Those are all being televised on NBC and Peacock, and it's awesome to watch. You're watching dreams literally be made right before your eyes as as athletes vie for spots on the Olympic roster, team, slate. I'm not really sure what you call that when you're filling out several different sports like this, but June 15th through the 30th are the U.S. Olympic trials. You guys can watch those here in the U.S. I was watching them on there. It's great stuff to have on in the background. It's just sports all the time. And then those opening ceremonies are July 26th. I am so excited that these games are in Paris. This is the first time in 3 Olympic cycles, 12 years, that the games are not being played in Asia. I have no issue with them being played in Asia. They've always been, fantastic spectacles to watch, but it is just such an opposite time zone of us here in North America. I'm excited that, yes, it's still Europe. Yes, it's still going to be several hours ahead of where we are. Prime time isn't quite going to line up, all of that, but it's much closer, and we're going to be able to have some stuff better lined up, so I'm really excited for that. I always love the Olympics, when they roll around this time of year. And then I'm obviously a sucker for the Winter Olympics. I'm so excited. The NHL is going back next Olympic cycle, but this will definitely be something that you guys will hear us talking about, at least me talking about here this summer with Guerilla Sports. I'm super excited for the Olympics. I think it's going to be a ton of fun to watch, and just get to see some sports that you don't normally get to see, and get to see some amazing athletes that don't usually get the airtime they probably deserve. All right, last thing I am going to wrap up today with, I've had fun today, guys. Honestly, I've had fun just kind of flying through this stuff. I want to hear from you guys. I want to leave spots on here for questions. If there's topics that you guys find interesting, like I said, we're going to be building this show in particular out and adding to it and changing in the way that we do things and the way we talk about things. And I want input from you guys as well, input to me and all of our fantastic hosts. Last thing, it is an anniversary today. Do you know what the anniversary is? 30 years to the day, O.J. Simpson in his white Bronco interrupts Game 5 of the 1994 NBA Finals as he was being chased down the highway in Los Angeles 30 years ago today. And wouldn't you know it, Jay, tonight, Game 5 of the NBA Finals. I was alive during the O.J. Simpson infamous Bronco chase, but I was not quite old enough to remember it. The one thing I think about all the time now is, especially on a day like today, 30 years later, what a story to be someone who was pulled over on the side of the highway. They got to see O.J. Simpson, like I said, in the now infamous white Bronco chase going down. Is it the 405? I think it's the 405 in Los Angeles. So 30 years to the day, Game 5 of the 1994 NBA Finals is interrupted by Al Cowlings and O.J. Simpson being chased by a squadron of LAPD going down the highway. Tonight we have Game 5 of the NBA Finals between the Boston Celtics and Dallas Mavericks. Wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you know it? All right, guys, that's going to do it for the very, very, very first episode of Guerilla Sports Daily, our new daily update show that will be bringing you guys Monday through Friday at 9:30 a.m. right here in the Guerilla Sports Studios. Make sure you guys are tuning in every single morning. Set those reminders. Subscribe on YouTube so that you guys are being alerted that, hey, we are going live and bringing you all the updates from the day. At noon, I will be right here on this same channel live talking Avs, hockey, and we're getting close to the draft. Can't wait to talk more about it, guys. I will talk to you soon. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody.